Good afternoon. I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Commissioners Finance Committee to order at this time. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioners Rahman,
Present.
Long,
Here.
Howell, Cavell,
Here.
Smith Charles. I know she's here. Waver,
Here.
Hoffman,
Present.
Markham.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have quorum?
Yes.
Okay, before we go on, I would like to just take a moment of silence to acknowledge the loss of our colleague, Commissioner Gary McGilvery, who passed away late last week. He was a revered member of our commission and mayor of Madison Heights before that, and you know, we're all gonna really miss him, so let's just take a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Now let's stand for the pledge. Mr. Cavell, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from the October 11th meeting. I'll take a motion. Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Long. Any changes to the minutes? If not, let's prompt the vote.
My thing.
Sure.
My nail won't work. You need yours? Oh, is there another one, please? Oh, you don't need it? Okay.
I have a shard one.
My fingernails don't work.
Madam Chair, you have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Mine didn't pop up. And mine didn't pop up.
Yours didn't pop up? Okay.
Refresh.
No, it's
Fancy for
Am I reading the vote? Or- No, we're good.
I'll be yes.
All right, yes.
It's fine to show you, so.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have approval of our agenda. I am going to point out that we have rearranged our agenda. We brought the public health and safety grant acceptances first on the agenda. There's a number of them, but we're going to take them up all at once. So that should move things along. That is
So this is fixed on our, it's
Yes,
the
so
order on
you're-
this since we refreshed, okay.
Yes, since you
Thank you.
refreshed, you should be good. Okay, everybody got that? Nothing
Need a
else
motion?
changed, right?
Do you need a motion?
Subcommittee, you might want to everybody refresh. You just picked that.
Okay,
Or we can verbally say it.
where is that one? Assignment
Oh,
of
Bob's gonna be
the
it,
audit committee.
It just got refreshed, so.
You know,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
did they fix it and put it in the
So if you
refresh?
now,
Okay,
you'll have it.
all right, we'll,
Hit refresh again, did you say?
yep, hit refresh again. Okay, good.
Do you need a motion for the agenda? Or did we do that already?
Yes,
I'll
I
move
need a
it.
motion to accept the agenda,
I'll move it.
supported by Commissioner Rahman. Any changes or concerns, Commissioner Cavell?
I imagine the point of the IT budget discussion is to talk about it for a minute. The way this looks is it comes before department recommendations,
Oh, shoot, look at this.
so
Well, it's a presentation, that's all it is. It's not something we're voting on, they will make a presentation, we will receive and file. So,
but if we have a bunch of questions,
you can still ask the questions.
right, but then we got all these folks waiting too. So well,
Yeah.
just saying, somebody's gonna have to wait a while, so who
Yep.
do we want?
We're moving all the public health and safety people out of here first, so that's probably as good as we can do today,
Okay.
okay? Thank you.
I get you one of presentations.
All right.
Yeah.
All approval, please prompt the vote on approval of the agenda. Sorry, everyone. It was a long night last night and long morning this morning, so.
See, we
It's
didn't.
already afternoon, yeah, right?
I know,
So I'm not popping up.
oh, you're not popping up?
So do I need to?
try to refresh again. And then we'll
Make sure you're in the,
get,
Am I in the meeting? I mean, I'm
you are
not
in the
there.
meeting, correct?
yeah, it's got public safety. Oh, did you hit present voting? Maybe go back out and go back in.
I took care of it on my
okay.
end, so you should.
I'm a yes.
No, it's okay, he's a yes.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the agenda's approved.
Yeah.
Next up, we have public comment. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the finance committee at this time? Seeing no one, I will close public comment and we will open up item number 7, which is Public Health and Safety Committee grant acceptances. I will take a motion to accept all of these at the same time.
I will move items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J of item number 7.
My goodness.
Supported by
That's a lot of
Commissioner
items.
Rahman, and that is to recommend these grant acceptances to the full board.
All grants, right? Amendment, yes.
They're all grants. So nobody has any questions or comments on any of these? Let's go ahead and vote.
Spending equipment, US, corrections. Just looking at them, making sure.
But obviously I went through PHS yesterday too.
Rupert, did you get?
They're just ones from
Right,
every
yeah,
year, I think, right, too.
Okay,
Our
okay.
yearly,
Let's vote, right, Rupert?
Yes.
except the amendment for Rochester Hills, which I'm assuming they want in.
And I'm sure you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, and I'm just gonna quickly read what these are, so the folks who are in the meeting that are here for what I'm gonna repeat, your item has been accepted. So that is the 2024 Adult Treatment Court Program. There's 3 of those. There's a 2024 Crime Victims' Rights Grant. There's the Anti-Terrorism Emergency Assistance Grant, excuse me. The 24 to 2028 Title 4D Cooperative Reimbursement Program. The 2023 Law Enforcement Distribution Program, second distribution. Amendment 2 to the Law Enforcement Services Agreement with Rochester Hills. The Michigan Department of Corrections fiscal year 2024 Community Corrections Funds. And the final one is the Department of Health and Human Services Health Resources Administration for the 2023 Community Project Funding Congressionally Directed, Spending Facilities and or Equipment Projects Program. So if you were here for any of those items, your item has been approved. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay,
It's weird, some people that go back to work or lunch.
all right, next up, item 8, Public Health and Safety Recommendation. Item A, amendment number 3 to the interlocal agreement
What's this
with the
amendment
Open
about?
Community Health Network for Substance Use Disorder Prevention Services. Moved by Commissioner Smith-Charles, supported by Commissioner Cabell. All right, and we have, looks like Leanne Stafford is up to tell us.
Yes, it's actually good afternoon now. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So this grant is with Oakland Community Health Network. It is like a continuation grant. This is a grant we currently have, and it's really focused around substance use disorder and education in schools. So 2 of the big programs that we offer is the Catch My Breath, which is really focused around tobacco and vaping program. And then Michigan Model for Health, which is an evidence-based curriculum that focuses pre-K through 12th grade. And so we are contracted with OCHN to offer individual educational opportunities in certain schools. And so this funds actually 2 full-time health educators to go into the schools that are dedicated to us to provide this curriculum. There is a match of just under $20,000 that we have to provide as part of this grant.
Which is additional.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody on the commission, I'll open it up to you. I need one of those poker things.
Sure.
Oh, he's got one, yeah, I need that one. Okay, my hand wouldn't work.
We have a motion. We
Oh, we
got
do?
Smith Charles and Cavell.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. It's okay.
I don't think I have anything, if it's additional money.
Here are, nobody signed up to speak, so let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
We already spoke so much in the first meeting.
Economic development.
I know, that's a long one, so hot.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
There's a note under that, you know.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have item 9, which is communications. We will need a receive and file on each one of these. Can we take them all together, or should we
Yeah, you, is that you?
take the first two and then the third one we should talk about?
You could, yeah.
Okay. Somebody wanna make a motion on items 9A and B?
I'll move A and B,
Commissioner Long,
and I think
supported by Commissioner Cavell? Okay. Do we have any questions on this item? Okay, Commissioner Smith Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Comment more so than a question, which is during EDI, Commissioner Rahman was asking about OakNet, different things like that. And I was shared with during that meeting that some of that is contained in some of these this IT report or presentation.
oh, okay.
Yep, that's stuff, yes.
So the point was if you had unanswered things, that they would be available, but I don't know that it's underneath communication. So I just wanted to offer that up.
I think it's gonna come in item 10, their presentation
Okay,
that they're making to us today.
thank you. That's all I had.
So, let's go ahead and prompt the vote on items 9A and B.
No, I'm on, yeah. Oops.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Okay, motion carries. Next is the item 9C, the appointment to the audit committee, which is a small committee. And the audit takes place, I think, every other year?
No, every year.
Every year? Okay. We just haven't met. Maybe it's because of COVID or something. It's been a while since we had an audit committee.
Last year, I think.
Yeah, okay. So we have
Who's on it now?
nominated Commissioner Cavell, Commissioner Smith Charles, and Commissioner Hoffman to be members of the audit
Hey,
committee.
good choices.
Yeah, because it's not you.
But I said no.
Yeah, they said I needed, well,
That's why I'm saying such good choices.
okay, so let's prompt the vote on item 9C, appointments to the
I'm
audit
at one
subcommittee.
now, I didn't know I was on, so.
Thank you for setting me straight, Cheryl.
Oh shoot, how do I get rid of this? I never
And
can.
by the way, audit subcommittee, you're scheduled to meet right after this meeting. You
Yeah,
know
see?
that? Except I have to tell Mr. Hoffman.
Put you right to work.
That's not on the
You never
calendar.
reach, so.
No.
Except
that's a-
in
that's
20
the
minutes.
worst- That's the worst old wise tale ever, when they get on a committee, they never meet.
Madam Chair, you have 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, thanks. Next up, we have department recommendations, and first item is item 11A.
Oh, no, Ted.
Oh, no, I'm
IT.
sorry.
Yeah,
Next up is item 10A, the presentation from the IT department budget discussion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've all been waiting
go
for
on
this.
that.
I'll take a motion. Set up
So it's
Commissioner
receive
Hoffman,
receive
supported
and
by
file, right?
Commissioner Smith Charles, thank you. All right, good
All right.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right over there.
I can't dangle, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Can't dangle this long,
It's all good, it's all good. We're off to a strong start, I like it. So it's good to see everyone again. We are back for the IT deep dive. I've assembled what I think is fair to say is the team of experts in terms of IT budget. So all of the questions that I could not answer last time we were together, I think the collective wisdom of the team should be able to. And well, we won't even talk about what happens if they can't, but so I'm confident that they will be able to. Yes, so I think you all know Cheryl, obviously, and so we have Tammy and Jeanette, so among Jeanette's many responsibilities is IT budget, and Tammy also provides input into the IT budget, and she also has well, they both actually have the advantage of having a fairly long tenure, so lots of historical knowledge about how all of this complex system fits together. So my plan is I'll just kind of kick us off with a couple of slides, and then I will turn it over to Cheryl. She will do the yeoman's work, and then collectively we'll come together to answer the questions. So IT strategies, so obviously this is just sort of an overview of, what does IT do, why are we here? So obviously we provide data and secure data services to the departments. Some workplace organizational transformation support, so all of the techie stuff that IT does. We've got the 5 different units of IT, so we've got, and some of these are newly named, so the application client services focuses mostly on the application support and development, so all of the stuff that people use to do most of their work. This is primarily where the user interface piece lies. Enterprise Architecture and Strategy is a group that kind of does road mapping, forward planning. They actually do some small project implementation. This is about coming up with methods. How do you want to stitch the systems together? And then from the infrastructure side, how do we keep that stuff compatible and up to date? Information security obviously is the cybersecurity department, so they focus on keeping the bad guys out and keeping the data flowing where we need it to go. Infrastructure services is all kind of, I refer to it as the plumbing of IT, so the servers, the desktops, the storage, that sort of thing. And then the Office of the CIO is budgeting, project management. I know you get a whole other bunch of stuff in the Office of the CIO, but so mostly that. We have our 5 funds in IT, so we've got the Clemis Fund, we've got Fire Records Management, the Information Technology is the one I think we're primarily focused on. The Radio Fund is a subset, it's adjacent to Clemis for police communications, and then our telephone communications is in the separate bucket as well. So, all that being said, pass the baton to Cheryl.
So the next few slides are just the graphical representation of what's going on in the funds. I think the focus for today is gonna be the IT fund, which is the giant green slice of the pie. Then you can see how much that takes up compared to the Clemis, the radio, the telephone, and the fire records.
1 million.
These are the IT fund appropriations. So this is the same that you see in all of the other budget documents. We break it out by personnel, contractual services, there's software maintenance, professional services, depreciation, internal services, and then other operating costs. Again, this is the 24 budget numbers that are represented here that were passed by this board in September.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner Cavell?
Can we go back a slide?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, we can't go back a slide. I think you missed your opportunity.
That's a perfect answer for IT too.
For
IT to say
No, okay, can you briefly run through the sources of revenue? I know you're going to in more depth about IT fund, but just because looking at this, can you run through where the revenue comes from for each of these 5 funds, just briefly? Like Clemis is paid for by contracts mostly.
Yes.
Radio is paid for by the surcharge on our cell phones, right? Mostly, something like that.
Honestly, I'm not sure I have that data.
I think you're right on the first 2.
Yeah.
Because the guys behind you are nodding.
That's correct,
And
yes.
those are the Clemis funds.
First 2.
Cool.
And then telephone communications is.
Those are internal service, so
Right, so it's both
that is each
proprietary.
department internally based on how many phones they use. There's a charge to all of the departments that pay for that.
And that's both other proprietary funds like WRC, and parks, where they
Yep.
have their own revenue, as well as the general fund. So they're both, all the rest of them are funded like that except for fire records, right?
Yeah, so they fall under what we typically call charges for services.
Cool, okay. Thank you.
Wait, those are in the IT fund then, right? The other ones?
Well, they're kind of they're in all of the funds.
Okay.
So if you were to look at the funds in the budget book, you would see a charges for services line in radio, a charges for services
Okay.
line in Clemis, and also in the IT fund.
Okay.
Would another way to say that be roughly 63.1 million of IT's stuff comes from within the county departments or general?
Where are you getting the 63?
Well, 58 plus 1 plus 4.
You're doing the radio and you're adding the radio and telephone?
Yeah, so Clemis is funded through outside contracts. Radio is funded through that $2 surcharge on our cell phones or whatever it is.
Yeah, but
'Cause we
some
did
of
the-
that is outside as well. I
What
believe
is
there's some outside for radio as well.
Okay.
Isn't it on our phone?
But just saying,
It's on our
is
phone.
another way to say charges for services though, that's coming from county property tax and
Not
revenue?
typically charges
No.
for services, because this is a proprietary fund, so it acts sort of like a quasi business.
Yeah.
So we call it charges for services. Water Resources calls it charges for services. When the sheriff department bills other communities for their services, we call that charges for services. So you can't really say that charges for services is an internal fee compared to an external fee.
Okay,
There are both pieces in that bucket.
so then with IT fund, it though is all internal. Or that's why you have the presentation, you'll get into it.
Well, most of it is. There are things like for locals, so like if we talk about Ferndale, some of those charges for services, because some of the IT stuff is utilized by other communities for their taxes and things like that, those fall under charges for services. They're not necessarily internal, the bulk of them are, but there are some that do come from other sources.
Okay.
And usually, like if you're looking at drilling down into the detail, we do have like our revenue categories are broken out between internal and then external charges for services. And we do look at that every year during the audit. So there is a way to get that information to you. But just to say that charges for services blanket is internal, it's not necessarily correct. The
Okay.
bulk of it might be, but it
Including
depends
for
on the
IT,
service.
that's not accurate.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Do you have any questions about this stuff?
We'll see, I don't know.
On the next slide.
Okay. So this is the revenue sources. So this is the charges for departments, you see 19.3 for their operations. There's a charges for departments for development support, which is 6.3. Non-governmental other charges, those are probably external, those are proprietary fund external.
I found this.
Transfers in, other revenues, and then planned use of fund balance, which is truly just money that we have set aside in the fund balance that we're gonna use for some of these projects.
I see.
Let's let him get through this
Okay,
and
yep.
just write your questions down and ask them all at once, or we're gonna be here till 4, I think.
So this slide, there's a lot of words on this slide, so I'm just gonna recommend that you kinda like take it, read it at your leisure. The important things are the funding purpose and the appropriation, which is the 38.6. So these are general fund contributions to the IT fund. These are for operations, infrastructure, ongoing development, and then one-time projects. An example of a one-time project would be a software that we purchase, maybe Workday, that's considered a one-time project. It might take a couple years to complete, but it's in there as a one-time project. Other portion of these charges are to the other departments for, the bulk of it is the infrastructure. You know, when we were talking about trying to make this in layman's terms, it's really easy. You go to, Best Buy and you spend $1,500 on a laptop and you plug it in at home and it works. So then the question is, why does it cost us so much to do this? Because we're spending more than that on a laptop. And I know that's a question I've heard. But when you go home, you plug it into your internet and it works. When you bring it to the county, a perfect example is your iPads. You guys are voting electronically. That all has to tie into the system, and we have to make sure that the right people can get into it and that the right people stay out of it. So there's a lot of stuff like we have phones that are all connected, we have tablets, we have monitors. All of the IT technology has changed so significantly, even just since COVID, because that sort of drove that speed of change. But the biggest, it's just been 20 years. I mean, I don't think that we've ever seen technology changes go through this quickly before. And, we were talking about it like, in the late 90s, that some of us had beepers and pagers, and now I can tell you who's at my door and I can talk to my dog outside because I can do it on my phone because all of the technology advances. Good, bad, or ugly, there's been a lot of technology advances. So what this team is trying to do is keep up on those, make sure that we do have the tools that we need so that we can be competitive, and also make sure that we're keeping all of our data safe. We've got circuit court data, we've got public health data, we've got all kinds of data that lives in our system, and these are the costs that protect that data. And I think that's probably the easiest way to say that. This is the capital budget plan for IT. It's kind of self-explanatory. It talks about software, equipment. They use a system that tells them the end of life of things and when it might need to be replaced or, brought up to speed. Obviously, I can remember when I first started doing capital assets, a computer was good for like 7 years. That's not the case anymore, so those are the things that they're doing in their capital plan, making sure that we all have up-to-date information and that our equipment is all up to date. Part of the reason why I want to talk about this is these are the current billing rates that were adopted in the '24 budget. Last week I received a scope of service from Maximus. What we're doing is we're going out to Maximus and have them look at how we're charging departments, how we're charging external sources for all of our IT needs. Because the way it's been, it's like it's per pad. So if you've got an iPad, it's this much. If you've got a laptop, it's this much. It's just a way to quantify how we're gonna divide all of these costs. Now that hasn't been looked at since 2004. And so there are a lot of new technology advances. We've got phones, laptops, all that stuff. So what Maximus is gonna do for us, and they're the ones that do all of our internal cost stuff for us. They're recognized by the government. They're approved by the government to do costing for grants and things like that. And so we've already partnered with them, but they're going to come in and look at how we're charging and make sure that we're still on track. I don't think we are. I think the system completely needs to change. And, depending on what they come back with, we'll either roll that change out or pull the Band-Aid off and see how that works. But I think what that's gonna do is help people have a better comfort level with how much we're charging departments for the services that we're providing, and make sure that we're also, if we're charging extra to some department and not this department, I think it'll level the playing field and make sure that it's more accurate. That's not to say that we haven't made changes since 2004. We have been doing incremental increases. We'll do a percentage increase, but the structure of the rates hasn't changed. And I think that's what we're gonna see with Maximus. And that's our plan is to get that rolled out so that we can use that for the '25 budget. And then I think this is where I turn it back to you, Rod. This is just talking about the types of support that your team provides. And again, like I don't, this is all part of those rates, and I don't know about you, but when I can't log in or I'm having trouble, like I send a Teams message or on my phone and I've got somebody in 10 minutes helping me. And I know that we are all used to that level of service that this team provides.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've
you want
got a
the clicker
couple
back?
more
There you go.
clicks. Guess we'll put ourselves up to questions. So these are kind of a list of our top contracts in terms of spend. So things that are familiar, I think Microsoft Workday, telecom charges, Dell's desktops, some server stuff. We've got Esri, which is our GIS mapping software. The Qualtrics, I think people are familiar with from we got that with
Surveys.
the COVID surveys, yeah. Oracle database, databases, so we've got I think there's a lot of vendors in IT, but these are the top ones in terms of the spend. And then we talked about the rate study already.
This is back to me. So I think I covered everything when we talked about the rate study that we're looking at.
And then just in terms of our capacity planning, so we've talked a little bit about making changes to our master planning process, that we have some more agility. So Jeanette's been kind of taking the lead on some of that for us to streamline the process. So we've got a pilot, I think, that we're gonna kick off this month to kind of, we call it the IDEA process.
Yes, idea project intake.
So if people have things that they want to do that aren't necessarily locked into our 2-year plan, we're working on a way to try to accommodate that. And then moving forward, see if we can generate some more flexibility. Now, some projects obviously will take multi-year, but we're gonna see if we can come up with a way to be a little more agile and flexible for that piece, so. All right, I think that brings us to the end of our presentation, and now I know that there's many questions for Cheryl, so.
All right.
The clicker.
Up to the commission, and if you want to speak, ask any questions.
You got a couple there.
First, Commissioner Cavell, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
I can let someone else go first as long as you just call me eventually.
Okay, Commissioner Rahman? Sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for the presentation. I know based on our budget hearings a few months ago, this was very much needed, so I appreciate that. If I understood everything correctly, with this new internal audit and rate evaluation that's happening, is it my understanding that this last happened in 2004? Is that what I heard, or is that?
The last time that Maximus did this for us was 2004.
Okay.
So what we did with them, and we didn't go out for an RFP, we had them present us with a scope of work and told them, what we were interested in. And so that's where we're at now, reviewing that scope of work.
Okay.
The rates have been increased since 2004 though.
But never internally audited, or we never had that formal
Well,
process?
they're audited as part of our annual audit, but the structure of the rate charges has never been looked at externally,
Okay.
by people who do that for a living, to make sure that we are changing with the times. We were doing, my understanding is there were, let's do a 10% rate hike, let's do a 5% per piece of equipment rate hike. So there was never any kind of since 2024, there wasn't any kind of a structure. Is this structure right? Are we charging correctly? It is per, it used to be like you sat at a desk and that was your desktop. And if you had a printer, there was a charge for a printer. Well, now we're all scanning and printing at our multifunction devices, so that's not really part of it anymore. Like, just the whole structure of how we utilize computer changes. I take mine home with me. Some people, this was the only place they had it. So I think that the structure of the way that we charge, it's I don't think the amount in totality is gonna change, but what I think is gonna change is how we divvy up who pays those costs.
Well, I know at least for me, going through my first budget hearings, IT was far and away the most confusing, at least for me. I can't speak for the rest of the team, but even when we were speaking with Mr. Davenport, it was just, it's hard to wrap my head around exactly how the books are kept and how charges are, where the money's coming in and going, and
Right.
things like that. Is that process, through all of this going to somehow be a little bit clearer? And if so, are we going to have a regular upkeep process moving forward? So as things change, as you mentioned, I thought it's a great point, if it's whether you're buying a laptop or if we have a new device 5 years from now, just so we're not in the same position.
Yeah, and I think, I think it's confusing for a lot of us, especially in terms of internal service charges, because it's like, well, this is the cost of doing business, why does my department have to pay for this? But, I use examples, we're not a profit business. So let's say we have to pay $15 million a year for our IT uptake. It doesn't matter how we pay that 15. I could charge the bulk of it to the sheriff's office. They wouldn't like it, but I still have to collect that 15 regardless. So what we're really looking at is how that's structured. And the example that I'm gonna give, which I know Charlie can relate to, is when I was in Ferndale, there was a lawsuit and they said, okay, you can't pay this, excuse me. You can't pay this amount on the water bill anymore, now you have to pay it on the taxes. Well, the reality is citizens still have to pay that same amount, but now we're saying, instead of paying by how much water you use, we're gonna figure out how much you owe by how much your house is worth. So we still have to pay the same amount, but the way that we're determining who owes what is what I think is gonna structurally change significantly.
Sure. And I don't.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I don't know that it's necessarily the dollar amount that I ever had a problem with, right? It was just maybe the transparency or clarity and understanding exactly to your example, how those numbers were coming to fruition and how we were paying.
Exactly, and I'll be honest with you, there's some of that, when I first got here, it was confusing to me as well. Like, how are we doing it this way?
Right.
And I think what we're doing is we put Band-Aids on this stuff for the last 20 years
Right.
so that we could get the funds that we need to support the digital and the technology that we have. So I think it's gonna be really clear, because it's gonna have to make sense to me or we're not gonna do it. You know what I mean? And if I can't explain it to you, again, you're not gonna approve it. So that's a direction that we're going in. There are probably a few things that people find confusing, because this is how, my lips are gonna say this is how we've always done it. And so, and we're trying to look at that and find out, does this still make sense? Or do we need to go from A to D and not worry about B and C anymore, even though that's the way we've always done it? So that's the process that we're going through right now.
And then, sorry, one last question. The rates that we currently have set, I know we're gonna possibly change things around a little bit. The internal and external charges are on par with each other?
That I don't know. I can look and find out. I don't think they are. But I think that probably what they did was look at what external communities are using with our tax system. That's got a rate, and then internally we've got a rate here. So I don't know how all of that gets looked at, to be completely honest with you. But those are things that we're gonna look at and make sure that, when we do this and we do it for communities and they benefit because of, economies of scale.
Sure.
But we also have to make sure that we aren't cutting ourselves short and making sure that we are making the money that it takes to get that infrastructure all the way out to that community and back.
And I'm not suggesting that it be for profit or anything, but at least in terms of even liability, right? If we're providing external services, I wanna make sure that we're at least covering ourselves, and in the case of something going wrong, we have some level of protection.
Yeah, and that will all be, cause even in the last 3 years, that's changed so significantly. Just the cyber coverage and the security pieces, because that changes weekly. Any threats that are out there, 5 years ago, we never heard of a ransom attack, and now, it's everybody's worst fear, so.
Is it worthwhile, do you think, to continue maintaining that level of external services, given that?
I think that that's something that we're gonna let Maximus help us decide. Because if it's not, if it's not something that we can recover the cost of doing that part of the business, it doesn't make sense for us to do it. But there's also a lot of, like with the sheriff department, it's really beneficial to the communities in Oakland County to utilize our sheriff system, because we have trained, they have body worn cameras, we have this all up and rolling, and they can just kind of jump in and start it. When they have to do that, then they have to carry a portion of liability insurance, where, or the full liability insurance, where now they only carry a portion of it because that's the part that is allotted to them. So it's just the economies of scale that makes that beneficial to the communities.
Okay, Commissioner Cabell.
So, how long until you find out what Maximus says?
Well, I have the scope of work, so what I need to do is review that, make sure that we are in alignment of the scope of the work, and then talk about getting a contract together with purchasing and see what that'll look like. It'll probably be, we're in the middle of year end as well, So, and I've got a couple of other things on my plate, so it might be a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but our plan is to have something up and running, based on Maximus's capacity as well, so that we have it for the 25 budget, because we don't want to kick it down the road any longer. Which that'll start like January, February, when we start putting stuff together for that.
Okay.
So I think our plan with them is like January, February, to actually have a contract together and get them information so that they can start like cranking through the numbers and look at it.
Okay. So then it's kind of unfair then to ask about like the dollars and cents and the different buckets they're in, because that might then look different.
I think it will look different.
Okay, so then,
And I think those are things that, when we do talk about this,
yeah,
that, obviously we know you guys wanna know this, so without getting you too far into the weeds, I think it'll be a clearer, these are the buckets, this is where we're going, and this is how, these are the buckets we're funding it from, and it'll make more sense.
okay.
That's my desire.
So then, I have a couple questions for you, Rod, and then one question for you about, just something I didn't understand in the presentation, so please educate me. And forgive me if I'm the only one that doesn't know the difference between accumulated depreciation and book value. But,
The
What
book
is-
value
yeah.
is the cost that you paid for it,
Okay.
less any accumulated depreciation. So if you think of your car, maybe you pay 25,000 for your car, you've got 5,000 of accumulated depreciation on it, the book value of your car is now $20,000.
okay, understood,
But that doesn't mean what it's worth
right,
No,
necessarily.
no.
right.
And if there's significant changes, then we can make those changes to, the value, but usually that happens when an asset is disposed of. So I've seen a situation where we bought a building and it was relatively cheap, the building was on the books for 50 years for $10,000. Obviously, we sold it for more than that. We call that a gain on sale, and then that shows that the book value of that building was no longer $10,000.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so then the other questions I had, so Rod, for the, like IT in general, like thinking of the philosophy of it, like the financial philosophy, if you will, like what is, cause Cheryl, what you were saying of like, in 2004, we looked at computers and technology differently, and now it's 20 years later, so it's the next generation of thinking how important this is to budgets, and we've been trying to put Band-Aids on it and figure it out with duct tape. What is like a best practice that you can point to, and feel free to like get back to us if you're like San Antonio's really the model or something, but like how much should we be expecting as a finance committee for this to be a part of conversation? Cause it seems like, for now, it seems like this bottomless pit that just keeps getting bigger and gobbling more stuff up. So I appreciate you wanting to untangle that. But yeah, what's a best practice for, county governments of our, is Westchester County or King County or Montgomery County the ones we always think about? Their best practice is 27% on average, and so we gotta just be ready to kind of expect that. That's part one. And then same sort of vein, is charges for services as a model a best practice, and is that gonna come out with the Maximus thing, it sounds like?
I think that'll come out
So-
with Maximus, if I may.
Yeah.
Because that's why we didn't say, okay, we need an RFP, we need something from you to tell us how much this is gonna cost.
Yeah.
That's why we asked for them for a scope of work,
Okay.
because we wanted them to look at what we had, analyze what we're doing, and in some of that way, tell us what some of the best practices are for charging these back.
Okay.
But I think your question for Rod was more like, what are best practices in keeping it maintained?
Oh, what'd you say?
Cost benchmarking, yeah.
That I gotta learn that phrase, okay.
Or not, I mean, but yeah, so. Yeah, so
We
there,
like Charlie to get more and more educated, cause.
Yeah, this is really good for me, yeah, sorry to waste everyone's time, but I'm not.
right. So, yeah, so there are, kind of typical percentages for different sized organizations. So, and some of this depends on, they have different categories, like if you're an early adopter, you're really tech forward, you would tend to spend more. If you are less technically intensive, then you would spend less. So yeah, there are numbers, I don't wanna commit myself to a number, but generally it's like, between 4% and 7%, I think, of like overall spend goes to IT. The piece that I think is maybe more variable in that is from kind of the application side. So there's it's tough to flex the amount that you spend on IT based on population. So if you've got 100 laptops, you've got to buy the 100 laptops. So I can't really fudge that too much. Then those laptops need to connect into the network typically, and then those also need some cybersecurity stuff. So a lot of that is kind of fixed. Now, do you want to just run Microsoft Word on that laptop? Or do you want to run a whole bunch of stuff? So that's really where kind of the business piece of this comes in and say, how much are you doing? How digital do you want that to be? Tools, right? And so that would, that moves the spend around as well. Now, I think there's truth in this, but I feel like at this point, 2023, we've squeezed a lot of the juice out of this, but that technology, drives increases of efficiency and effectiveness, which I think it does, but then there's also a perception that reduces labor. And I think that a lot of that has kind of already been starched out of the equation and now not so much, right? So now I think it's really more about, hey, there's new capabilities because the machines can do things faster, perhaps better, and we can even talk about the AI piece of this at some point, right? That there's new stuff that the machines let you do that you couldn't do before, but the people are still gonna do things. So it's not really we're saving a bunch of money on staff, it's we're spending more money to do more.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the discretionary part of it, right? So there's, I guess, I would say that there's not so much a best practice, I think it's just there's averages for organizations that are like us on what they spend, but that doesn't necessarily put like an upper or lower bound on what we choose to do.
Okay, so that being said, our annual budget, right, I know we did the triennial, but this year, 24, is gonna be 547 million, right? Something like that. It's like 307 property tax plus
I don't get it, Phil.
some more in other revenues.
Say that again?
Five,
I don't have that,
it's like, so.
I didn't bring Kyle's brain with me, so I don't
okay,
know what I'm
okay.
talking about.
This Charlie.
But just assuming that's a fair-ish number, then that means that your 87, almost $88 million out of 550 million is above the 4 to 7, with the Maximus thing perhaps include cuts to IT, or I guess efficiencies or whatever you use to say that, but
Isn't the budget $1 billion?
I thought our budget was
it's the
Well,
triennial
the-
budget,
the-
and
the-
so,
The full budget is $1 billion.
The full budget's $1 billion
right, but
a year,
Half of that is.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's a year.
our general
like
fund
1.2.
property tax was 307 million. And then you add in 240-ish million more in revenues from grants and other sources, so it's 547 a year, but the triennial budget's like 1.4. So yes, we do have a $1 billion budget, but
That's not for all 3 years. That's not for all 3 years.
the 1 point whatever billion,
St. Joe's, McLaren.
that's not
That's
for all
per
3 years?
year.
No, that's per year. That's per year. And I like I said, I didn't bring I did bring,
In clinic.
look at you. Being all prepared and stuff. Hey, you're on the audit subcommittee, right?
So then, the big point I'm trying to make is, are we at 4 to 7-ish percent above or below? And then with that, should we expect gains or losses, or increases or decreases in cost, or is it too early
Well,
to
I
say
think,
that?
I think it's too early to say. You
Partnership or what is it?
you asked Rod for a best practice.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's private sector, public sector, county, local. It's different for everybody. And I know even if we just looked at departments, my tech needs are a lot higher than somebody else's who just uses email and Word. Like I'm using databases, I'm using Excel, I need, it's like DPW needs a plow truck and it better have a plow on it. I need a computer that better have some, oomph in it so that when I'm trying to put some stuff together, I can do it and it's not lagging. So I don't know that you could, obviously Rod knows what the number might be, but I don't know how that matches with our number, and I think that that's something that we'll get from Maximus.
So
Because I'm guessing what they'll do is look at it and say, this is a best practice for communities or counties this size, and you guys are within here.
Okay. So too early yet?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah,
Alright.
too early yet, and then I guess, we'd also have to think about,
November 16th.
I don't know to the extent that different counties do as much extra county outreach as we do, right? So that could tend to distort the spend as well, or at least the comparison of the spend. Yeah.
But that's part of the overall question is, are we
Yes.
doing more than we should be? Are we doing, how efficient is all of that? I like the idea that you're actually having Maximus come in and take a look at what the heck we really need today in 2023 for the next 10 years.
Governmental activities.
Good.
So that's a billion.
All right, Commissioner Cavell, are you done with your questions?
Yes.
Okay. With that, does anybody else have any other questions? Let's vote on receiving and filing this presentation.
Secretary of 7 years or nays?
Okay, thank you. So that was it for today for the IT department budget discussion. Next up, now we have item 11A, the case management system implementation for the prosecutor's office.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Rahman.
This is what they wanted,
Okay.
right?
Good afternoon, my
Welcome.
name is Justin Davis, I'm an assistant prosecutor, I've been an assistant prosecutor for 27 years. I can say that our office is very excited about this new case management system that is going to revolutionize our office, and it's kind of a game changer for us. As a way of background, in summer of 2023, the state of Michigan, the legislature appropriated $10 million to 83 different counties within the state of Michigan to update their case management system, and that is CARPEL, or Prosecutor by CARPEL. The Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan saw the need, was able to execute, and then obtain that money. Our portion that we're getting for 3 years, in year one, is $544,000, $975. That is what we will not have to pay at the county level. What we're asking for is additional funds to help support that system and transition from what we have now, which is a SharePoint site as well as Excel spreadsheet that we cobbled together with IT in order to deal with the need of not having a proper case management system. In the past, for 25 of my 27 years, we had paper files. And when the prosecutor came into office, as she's told you before, we had to do something to make it more efficient. It's horribly inefficient, and this system, CARPEL, is state-of-the-art. 33 states in the union use it. All the county prosecutors are gonna use it. We're very excited about it, and it's gonna revolutionize the way we do things in our office. Whether it's in the warrants division, or in court, the appellate division, or just looking at files and admin on a daily basis, it's something that we absolutely need. And we see the benefits of working with IT and what we've been able to put together, which is known as the Q Drive. It works, but it's very expensive. A lot of these are one-time costs. The first 3 years are paid for by the state. Then after that, Pam is going to attempt to get the appropriate funds and continue to fund it. So that's where we are as it relates to that. So I can answer any questions that you have. I know sometimes you guys have a lot of questions, sometimes you don't, but I'm happy to answer any that I can
Kind of a cringe.
with the assistance of IT.
So I wanna know, is it this Pam or is it?
Prosecuting Association of Michigan.
Oh, okay.
But it,
What is
Okay.
it? What's Pam?
So I'm gonna open the floor up to questions.
Prosecutors.
Prosecutor what?
Prosecutor Association of Michigan.
Oh,
All right,
I thought it was
so
your- I thought it was
does
your
anybody have
wife.
any questions? Commissioner White?
I saw in the
Pam
material, it said
Whitebird.
you have to be a member there. Are all counties members of it, or?
I believe all counties are members of it, and PAM is an organization that supports the local prosecutors within the state.
Pam
We have meetings, they discuss different legal issues, they provide support as it relates to software so that when we issue warrants, we all are on the same page of the playbook, for lack of a better term. They're a wonderful agency that we can call if we have questions, and they did a great job obtaining this funds. They saw the needs, they obviously convinced the Michigan legislature to give us $10 million. And again, this is just to support and to transfer from the Q Drive that they were able to help us with to CARPEL by Prosecutor, or Prosecutor by CARPEL, which will be very helpful.
Good, excellent. I have Commissioner Smith Charles, followed by Commissioner Rahman.
Thanks. Davenport, I was just gonna, I probably should ask these more often, so you can kind of use this as an umbrella question that I'll always have when it comes to IT, but is any of CARPEL computer systems, or, whoever we're going into agreements with have any footprint or anything in China?
I'm not sure, but that is a good question. So when we onboard new software, we do a cybersecurity review of it. So as now, I guess this other prosecutors use this, right? So there's some sense that maybe this is some legitimate piece of software, but we do as a review process, we do check for things like that. I don't know that we specifically check for China necessarily, but
Any China, Russia,
sure.
North Korea, all of them?
The enemies of the state, yes. Yep.
Because when we're talking about, digitizing things, we would hate for Oakland County to be the weak, the entry point, or however we want to say it, for nefarious ne'er-do-wells.
Yes, for sure.
So that was my question, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can say that it's from the state of Missouri, I believe that's where Carpel is.
Okay.
Mr. Carpel, that's his last name, he is the former prosecutor. I know that Pam certainly vetted it, and the legislature would have as well, but that is a valid question.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I know the prosecutor's office was here during budget hearings, talked extensively about, this being a sore point for them. So I'm just glad to see that this is already moving forward so quickly, because I know it is much needed, and I appreciate you coming to speak about it. Did you mention the time frame for kind of getting all this in place?
So the go live date that we have is actually April 15th. We're already working with IT. So it's supposed to be April 15th. If it doesn't happen on April 15th, I'll have some questions to answer for the prosecutor, but it's supposed to happen. Pam is also supporting us. Just to give you an example, Carpel will be here at the end of November for 3 days. Next Tuesday, myself, an individual from Pam, and a few other prosecutors are heading to Macomb County to see how they do it so that we can troubleshoot. I mean, we're really invested in this. I know law enforcement is as well, because one of the things that we heard the last time is the tsunami of digital evidence that we have. It makes the transfer of that much easier. It makes it so that we're not going to lose things that we shouldn't lose. I mean, it's really, we were in the 20th century or in the dark ages for a long time. It was all paper, and evidence was transferred hand to hand from the police officer walking up here, or sometimes it was email, but very, very rarely. So it's what we need, and thankfully the state is paying for a large majority of it, which makes it much easier in my opinion.
No, that's great. Like I said, just because it was mentioned so recently, I'm glad that it's moved so quickly. And then there's adequate training built into that time frame.
So it's very adequate training is my understanding. So I'm one of the individuals that's going to be training our APAs. I'm obviously vested to do that, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, one of the functions, for instance, we have to type in all the witnesses on our witness list. Well, that seems very inefficient. So it'll auto-populate that. There are 10 to 20 different formats that we can use. All the warrants are digitized, so if you type in, for instance, assault and battery, you'll have all the language in the charging document, and all you have to do is enter a few strokes and then you've got your warrant. Currently, you have to send an email to the typist, they're in different buildings, it's just so much more efficient, and things aren't gonna get lost, which is super important. And it's also a case management system too.
Do you see this affecting, because I know one of the other concerns that came up during budget season is ancillary staff, right? I think it was paralegals and things like that. We had attorneys that were doing a lot of paralegal work, and it just became a huge nightmare from that standpoint. Do you see this easing that burden in some way?
So for instance, it will ease the burden as far as typing, and those individuals can shift to helping with dealing with the digital evidence. It's one thing to obtain a copy of it, but you also have to review it, you have to figure out what you're gonna redact from it. It's a big issue that both the sheriff's department and the prosecutor's office are dealing with, that amount of evidence, because you can imagine if there's 5 police officers at a scene, that's 5 body-worn cameras. There's also surveillance video, there are interviews, there are, countless pieces of digital evidence, there are ring cameras that all have to be gone through if you wanna do your job the right way, which is be thorough and professional. So it will absolutely help with that. We'll have evidence.com, which will help interface with Carpel, so it'll all be one. If you pull up a case, you'll be able to look at the charging document, you'll be able to look at the motions that you filed, you'll be able to see who the prosecutor is assigned to the case, you'll be able to look at the case notes, you'll be able to look at the digital evidence. If you're wondering, well, how are we gonna establish ID? Well, let me click on that. It's all in one. For instance, in the past, when I wanted to review what was going on in a case, I could pull it up on the old PO83, which was here in 1996, but then I'd have to order the paper file from the 4th floor floor. They'd have to answer the phone, pick it up, bring it up, and then 2 or 3 hours later, I could figure out what's going on. Very inefficient. Additionally, I believe the counties are gonna work together, so if another county has charged an individual with a crime, then we're gonna know that they've charged him with the crime. We won't see exactly what it is, but we can pick up the phone and say, oh, I see this gentleman may have been involved in this type of crime in your county. Can we talk about that? So it's very, very helpful to law enforcement and our office and makes things much, much more efficient than they are right now.
That's great.
If I could just add one thing that might create a question in a few weeks. There's a future resolution pending that the prosecutor's also gonna be bringing for evidence.com. This is just for the case management system, and then the integrated system that Justin's talking about is for evidence, all that body worn footage and all of that. That's gonna be a second request.
Right, and
So
those
that's not in
interface
this
with each other.
request.
For instance, I believe Troy and many other police departments have that. It's just a click of a button. Now they have to send it to an email within our office, and then that has to be downloaded from the email and then placed on the Q drive, which is a very inefficient process, and we're looking forward to a more efficient process.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I have one question and I'm not sure, which is why I'm asking it. I've been told that the courts have a heavily paper heavy system. And, you know, I've talked to a couple of judges who said we need new management of our paperwork and so on. Does this relate to that, or is that a whole different thing?
So I do know that our system, Carpel, will communicate with PO83. That's part of this expenditure in the resolution, and that's so that those systems will interface. So we can't really control what they do, but I would agree with you, whichever judge or judges you spoke to. I mean, our system is antiquated. The PO83, I think it's been around, my secretary, Colette, bless you, has been around for 36 years. I asked her, was it here when you were here? She said it was. So the technology is very old, and I would agree with the court or the judges that say that it needs to be updated.
But this is not gonna solve the problem of the courts, this is strictly the prosecutor.
Yeah,
Correct.
2 different systems.
But if the court were coming to look for what they needed to improve, it should be related to this, I would think.
Absolutely, and this is in 33 different states, so I'm sure it interfaces with courts. I've not asked that question of Carpel, but I'm sure that it does because it interfaces with law enforcement and as well as the system that we actually have in Oakland County right now.
Yeah, I guess to our staff, I'd like to ask the question, for somebody to ask the courts, because it's been brought up before.
They are here.
We're here. We're not
For
district.
them.
So
Yeah.
we are very much, many of our systems are paperless. We scan a lot at circuit and probate court. I think probably your questions are coming from the district courts. The thing to remember though is that the court's file will always be separate from the prosecutor's file, and it really should be.
Right.
Things go in that prosecutor's file that the courts cannot have access to, things go in the court file that the prosecutor cannot have access to. So they do have to be separate systems. It does not mean that there could not be some kind of exchange of documents, but hopefully our e-filing system, if the state ever finishes rolling that out to everybody, will take care of that.
Okay, so it actually is a circuit court judge that I was talking to. And
Okay,
it's been a while, it's been probably a year since we had this conversation. I'm just looking for, is that system being improved in the way that this system is projected to be?
we hope to move off of the we are on the same mainframe system for circuit court that the prosecutor's office is on. And it is the circuit court's desire to get off of mainframe.
Okay.
So that part is true. And I guess I'd be happy to talk with you about specifics.
I'm not even sure I know, I just know that it's percolated up and it's the same sorts of issues, lots of paper, lots of inefficiencies and so on, so.
We do have a number of inefficiencies, things we'd like to improve, things that we had hoped the Laserfish project would, but maybe it never quite addressed.
Okay, and so you're saying when you're fully implemented with the state, a lot of this, with their new program, you don't think that's gonna help, or?
Well, I was talking about e-filing and we are using that in circuit court, district court is not. I was
Okay.
referring to the district court in that. Circuit court is using e-filing for almost all case types, I think all but 8 are e-file.
Okay, So that shows how much I don't know by the question I asked. Okay, anybody else? All right. Seeing none else, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. Did anybody get it?
Yeah, I got it.
Yes. I'll refresh just in case. Yes. Okay.
Okay, yeah, 7 yeas or nays?
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Next up is the IT development report for the fourth quarter 2023. They did try to put you guys in
I'll
order.
move it.
Moved by Commissioner Weipert, supported by Commissioner Smith Charles. Okay?
Isn't Charlie gonna go through these?
No, Charlie's not in the room. so-
Yeah, hurry up. I'm just kidding. Oh, yeah, I'm on tape. Shoot.
Okay,
It was supposed to be quiet. My motion came out loud.
all right. Is there anything in this that we need to make note of?
I don't think there's anything exceptional
No.
here, no.
Okay. All right, well, if nobody has any questions, let's go ahead and prompt this vote.
Kidding. He's gonna be mad when he gets back in.
As soon as you lose.
That's right.
He's a good sport.
No bad.
Okay.
I know. He's easy to pick on.
Six yeas or
Okay.
nays?
All right. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for spending your time with us today.
Quality time.
Exactly.
All right, next up is item 11C, sponsorship of the Southfield Chamber of Commerce and Excellent Holiday Event.
So
Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Weipert. This is a $5,000 item.
yes.
Chairwoman Markham, I did just want to let you know that we do have Jasmine Patton, the director of the organization, on virtually today.
Oh, hi, Jasmine. Welcome. So,
I think Steve.
yeah, you want to give us a quick rundown of what this event is? And,
Yes, are you able to hear me?
yes, yes.
Thank you. So the Excellent Holiday Party and Market is a joint event where we're combining the city of Southfield and Lathrop Village to come together, business leaders and community leaders. We are hosting it at a new venue, the Event House, which is located in Lathrop Village. The owner of the Event House is the events director for the Easter Market, who has created her new space here. And we are just bringing together vendors. We have 5 local vendors where we're encouraging the communities to support local and shop small. And we are also doing a canned food drive for attendees. It is free.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, here, she's back.
There you go.
I'm back. Okay. It is free to community. So we are looking to be festive, but with intention and purpose, and bringing 2 cities together, as well as shopping locally to support small business owners. And of course, we have several vendors that we are supporting. Are new businesses within both communities that are either our DJ, providers for the food, as well as Balloon, the balloon provider. She's a new Southfield business, the Detroit Balloon Bar. So we're really creating a small ecosystem within this holiday party and hoping to grow it in the upcoming years.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions or comments? We like promoting small businesses and cooperation between communities. Both of those things are really important and good and part of this project, so I'm happy to support it. Let's prompt the vote.
Since it's Yolanda, I'll vote yes.
Madam Chair, can I have Jasmine just remind us the date? I think it's tomorrow.
Oh, is that already?
Yeah. Yes, it's tomorrow 4 until 7 p.m. So I'd love to see your faces in person there, but yes, it's tomorrow.
Excellent, thank you.
So
It's already holiday, huh?
I just, with the timing, and then we didn't meet last time, and then the whole process with this special projects thing, it was like a slow slog. So normally I would not have been like, yeah, go for it, Jasmine. But with the dollar amount, I thought there'd be enough appetite at this table, but just know my commissioners, if it was like 60,000, I wouldn't have been like, yeah, just go ahead and put Oakland County on there without full board approval.
Okay. 7 days, it's over. Excellent, motion carries. Have a great event.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Tomorrow's supposed to be better, so I know rain,
All
I
right.
guess.
Let's see, where are we? Next up is item 8D, or 11D, the appropriating American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for Michigan Saves Energy Efficiency and Weatherization Program. I need a motion. Commissioner Smith Charles, Commissioner Rahman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, hello. My name is Erin Gutel, I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer. So it was in your packet already, but I just wanted to highlight a few items and then leave some room for questions. So this is $5 million request for ARPA funds to be utilized for the Michigan Saves Weatherization and Renewable Energy Efficiency Program. It would dedicate $4 million towards folks who don't normally qualify for some of the weatherization assistance program. It's kind of that missing middle for folks that may be overqualified for some of the funding, but underqualified or have some hardships. And then $1 million for really anyone. So the difference between the two tiers, again, it's in your packet, is that the $4 million would be a grant up to $5,000. It would cover items such as hot water heater replacements or furnaces or things like that, and then also any updates that need to happen in order to install those types of new energy efficient programs. The $1 million would be up to 20% grant match, and that would be a $3,000 amount. In total, it's just under 1,100, anticipated 1,100 household residents to receive this. And as with all the ARPA funds, it has to be expended by the December 31st, 2025. 2025, okay, I just said that right, deadline. A similar program was rolled out in Sterling Heights. All of the funds that they had dedicated were expended and accounted for in 9 days. And so this is something that we know that there's a lot of need for. And assuming that this passes and goes through, we are actively looking for other ways to fund this opportunity moving forward after the ARPA period. So with that, I'll take
questions. I'll start with Commissioner Hoffman, then Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you very much. I have a question. How come this isn't a program where you have to pay it back, like CDBG money, where we rehab somebody's home, there's no payments, no interest accruing, but when the house is sold, we get the money back and recycle it through the system and use it. I mean, I'd be more in favor of something like that, because then we can use the money again, because once it's spent, it's spent.
Sure. Funny enough, that was the original proposal.
It was what?
That was the original proposal, to have a revolving, to set up a revolving fund for it. However, the advice and going through the guidance that was for ARPA, it is not something that totally matched up with the requirements of ARPA. And so the recommendation and the program that was designed then was a grant.
So we can't do that, is what you're saying?
With this particular way that ARPA is written for this type of work.
Also, the HIP program got dinged by HUD as being racist. Never mind, it was my turn to talk.
So you're saying
you'd rather have people pay
ARPA
back.
does not allow us to have a revolving fund for this kind of thing?
Correct.
Okay. All right, next up, I'm gonna let Commissioner Long go next because
I used my button.
used the button, and then Commissioner Rahman.
All right, well, I just have a quick, so how will this I kind of agree with Commissioner Hoffman, that would have been good if we could have did it that way. But how would this be marketed, so people know in Oakland County that this is available?
That would be on Oakland County, that'd be on us. And so it'd be the responsibility of working me and our communications staff to make sure that we have the appropriate marketing and promotion and so forth.
Okay, so whatever, I mean, sometimes elderly or lower income don't have internet, so I'm just wanting to make sure that everyone in the county, if this is available for a new heater or something, that everyone will be available, this will be available for everyone, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rahman.
We talked about no
Thank you.
internet, right, North
So
End.
I'm piggybacking off Commissioner Long. If Sterling Heights, blew through their funding in 9 days.
Oh, they did.
How are we going to ensure, is this a first come, first serve? And if so, the 4 million bucket versus the 1 million bucket, I mean, do I have to be in a pressing need to be like, I have to change my water heater tomorrow? Or how do I get in line for funding, right? Like, let's say my water heater is goes bad 3 months from now. Is it possible that maybe that $1 million or $4 million, depending whichever bucket you fall in, is already gone by the time you get there? Do you have to get in line? How do you queue up?
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah, so it is, I would say mostly it's a first come, first serve, although there is a verification that needs to be done for the 4 million. And there's a income requirement that you would have to verify. So assuming that would go through, then that's the first come, first serve nature of it.
And then for the $1 million one, is that just kind of the same thing, first come, first serve, if you happen to be in line when this goes live? And is there, what is the maximum dollar amount? I know you said it was like a 20% or something?
Yeah, so for that one is $3,000
Okay.
for the tier 2 program. Yeah, I just want to double check. Yep, so it's up to $3,000. The other caveat for that one is that the project needs to be, for the tier 2 only, it needs to be $15,000 or more for that project to have that.
15,000 or more?
Yep.
And that's for anybody, all comers?
Correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Right.
And we'd be informed when that goes live, just so we can get word out to.
Absolutely.
Does it say no?
Yep.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah,
It's income.
okay.
Is it income based?
I gotta go back.
Sure.
So I got everybody who wanted to speak, I think.
Phil wanted to say something.
Did you?
That's good. So when is the rollout you
I'm
anticipate?
gonna say another one too then.
When do you think you'll go?
Rollout would be.
We're hoping that, assuming that everything goes through and passes, that we would have something at the start of the year.
Okay.
I got another
And
one.
it said,
Cause I don't think it says there.
plan for over 24 months, but you think of
Oh,
12 to
lower
14
income.
months, you'll be exhausted with the. And then I said, in some of the notes here where it said that homeowners do not qualify for some of the other programs because their income's too high or.
Correct.
So you're gonna, are you gonna,
It does.
at those programs, are you gonna get the word out that, hey, there's another source?
Right, exactly. So working with our House and Human Services, and everyone in health to promote this as well. Yes,
Okay.
making that connection. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I thought it's for everyone. That's why I said that about you, Okay.
All right. If nobody else has any other questions, let's go ahead and prompt the vote. I will make one comment, and that is for programs like this where we want to get the word out to people, the more the county can do to put this information in different formats.
That's what I
Facebook,
said, cause the internet.
Twitter
we don't have it.
feed, so that we can just pass it along. Whenever I get an email
They can't do anything with.
that says, oh, Oakland County's got this great new program for all of our residents, and it's a freaking email,
Right, we need a
I don't
PDF.
have that email list like that. So I really encourage
PDF.
you and the administration and communication, and I know you have your niche, but really, the more you can make things shareable for all of us,
You can put it
the
on
easier it is
Facebook.
to get the word out.
Correct.
Because sometimes I'll get stuff and I'll be just like,
And you try to
what do I
put it
do
up
with
and you
this?
can't do it,
Yeah,
right?
so.
Spend all
please.
time, I agree.
So
Absolutely.
that's my comment, anyway, after we pass, right?
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Okay, motion carries. So we got it.
Records. Records.
if it's quick.
Yeah, people don't have it.
Congrats, Erin. I know you've
Thank
been
you.
working on this for like literally 2.5 years.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm worried about giving
Commissioner Smith Charles.
Erin, can you remind us of the date of the sustainability thing you have coming up and the time and the
Oh,
location?
yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. So I have the first outwardly facing community event. It's happening next Friday, starts at 10, it's 10 to 2. We have a really nice lineup. This particular event was very focused on CVTs, so cities, villages, and townships, their leadership, their decision makers, and so forth. So I'm very excited. We have over 17 communities now represented and over 80 folks registered, so.
Thank you.
Is that the one that's at Waterford Oaks?
Yes,
10
that is
o'clock
correct.
next
Yes, that is
Friday?
correct, yes.
What about these
Thank you,
programs when
Erin.
people don't
Thank you
have
very much.
internet and stuff, how do they find out?
All right, next up, we have item 11E,
It's expensive.
appropriating the American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for an assessment of the Children's Village and Juvenile Justice System assessment. Moved by Commissioner Smith Charles, supported by Commissioner Cavell. We have Barb Hanky here.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Barb
afternoon.
Hankey, Director of Public Services. So this is a request for appropriation of ARPA funds to do an assessment on Children's Village and how we fit into the larger juvenile justice system. So we really anticipate that this assessment will do basically three things. First, look at the decision and practices around the diversion, deflection, and detention of juveniles. Some of you may know that there's a large package of bills moving through the legislature right now that address these particular things. And so we want to be poised when those things pass, that will know how those tools that SCAO, the State Court Administrative Office, and those practices that they pick overlay onto our system and implementation and practices. As part of that, we would also then be doing an evaluation of those practices, determining, what metrics we want to collect, definitions of things like recidivism, and make sure that the practices that we adopt in the implementation actually do what we hope that they do. The other things we hope that this does is to look at our community and what services are available within the community. Right now, we hear a lot of things that there's a lot of services available for youth involved in the juvenile justice system, but when we actually try to access those services, they're either full or they say our youth aren't appropriate. So we really want to do an inventory of what's out there and then have some recommendations for what we need so that the court can feel secure in knowing that these are services that they can put the youth and feel comfortable accessing those services. And we also want to do an inventory of our physical environment at Children's Village. Children's Village, most of the buildings were built, I believe, in the late 60s or early 70s, and they're really not conducive for what we're moving to and less detention, and recommendations about the types of resources we may need moving forward in the future to retrofit those buildings or how we can better use those buildings to meet the needs of the juvenile justice system. So those are the things that we hope to do. We're looking at this being probably a 24 to 30 month program, and that's because after we implement, we want to be able to evaluate, and so that always is, is going to take a little bit of time.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the commission? Commissioner Smith Charles.
Thank you so much, Barb. I missed you during the hearings for the budget and everything, and I'm sure you got a lot of feedback from my comments. So I feel like this is, we're taking steps in the right direction. It's just nice to be heard, so I want to acknowledge that I feel like I've been heard. And excited to have lunch with some of the residents later this month, I think on the 30th.
Yes.
To walk in the footsteps of my colleague here and really see how we can best serve these young people so that they can be productive, citizens in our great county. So thank you, and I look forward to more to come.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and we've known that this is an issue that we need to look at, and we are doing this in collaboration with the court. We have sort of a loose work group, so we're all in this together, and so we appreciate the support here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I'm not sure I understood what you meant walking in Commissioner Cavell's
He went and had a
shoes.
big tour.
Yeah, he had.
Oh, I was thinking he had lived in detention for a while.
Yeah, that was, yeah,
That was up north.
that was a while ago. That was when he was younger,
I wasn't sure what you meant.
back in the community now.
I wouldn't wanna throw Charlie under the bus like that.
But that's an example of how you can get out of the system.
Charlie, you are a good sport, I gotta say.
Appreciate you.
All right, and I promise not to pick on you. Okay, so if there's no more questions,
Thanks,
let's go ahead and prompt the vote. I'm just getting giddy, it's 1:30.
And we're hungry, where's
We don't even
lunch?
have any food.
Nobody feeds us.
I got extra granola
Have
or
some
whatever that
eggs
is.
or
if you
eggs?
guys need
Steal
it.
some of that. Okay,
Thank
motion
you.
carries, thank you so much.
Thank
Brian.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, Barb.
Okay, last item, I think, is item 11F, appropriating the American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds for the Pontiac Integrated Urgent Care Urgent Primary and Behavioral Health Center. Okay, Commissioner Rahman, supported by Commissioner Cavell. Who's here? Looks like
Leanne, I think.
Leanne's here.
I'm still here. Hi. So excited to come. I've already talked about this project a little bit before. We received $5 million from the state to kind of pilot this program, and really they're watching this program as an opportunity maybe in the future that we can expand this throughout the county. We requested that money quite a while ago from the state, and as we have been working through
State money.
some of the operational pieces, we see about $1 million gap in some of the operational costs, as well as we're really looking at an educational marketing campaign. We know, as we've talked about this with OLSA, OCHN, they're our big partner in Honor. One of the big things we have to do in the community is educate people on where to go. And that means based on the type of situation that they're in. We truly believe this will be a no wrong door place for people to come and walk in clinic. But we do know if someone has a broken arm, right, we really want them to go to the right location. And so we want to do a very robust campaign before we open, while we open, and continue to do it as we're piloting this. This also will be used for ULSA's, some of ULSA's pieces. So our initial contract was with OCHN and Honor to do the primary care as well as the urgent care or the behavioral health. And also will play a big part of this because they're going to help people get connected to the right resources as they come in. So this will be, we're asking for $1 million of our ARPA SLRF funds to help continue and really make this project whole so we can move it forward.
Okay, thank you. I have Commissioner Long who has a question.
Yeah, so thank you, Leanne. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's only these, like St. Joe's, McLaren, and everything just in Pontiac? It's with this whole 1 million is just for Pontiac area only?
So currently the site that we are setting up is in Pontiac. We have not finalized the location. Once that is finalized, we will share that. But this $1 million, in addition to the $5 million that the state will give, that already gave us and we accepted, will be for the location in Pontiac. What part of the educational campaign will be is that we will be working with other locations, other hospitals, right, everywhere, to let them know this is a resource for anyone. It's located in Pontiac to start, but our goal is that this is a champion, and we're going to move it forward, and there will be one in other locations in Oakland County. It's just the initial one is starting in Pontiac.
All right, so I guess that's what I was kind of wondering. So we're gonna find a location somewhere?
Yes, so we are working, we're finalizing the location. We're working on a potential contract. We haven't released that yet because we don't want that to we're not ready for it to be released yet. And once we have that finalized contract, we'll be able to release that to others.
All right, so then I have a question just to understand this. So if they go to this location in Pontiac and they had a broken arm, then they're going to refer them to one of these resources that is listed at our whereas, at either St. Joe's, McLaren, is that correct? Or, I just wanna help, I don't understand this program.
Broken, right. We're still working on a lot of those operational techniques, right, and how it's gonna work. If somebody comes in with a broken arm, there will be, right? Our plan is we will have physical doctors on site as well as behavioral health on site. They may be able to create a quick wrap on an arm, right? But the goal would be that educational piece that, yes, you can come to our location, but we're not really working on broken bones. However, Honor, is in Pontiac, could see this patient, maybe very quickly. And so we would likely refer them out for any further needs that they may have, other than maybe likely aren't going to have a CAS system in the integrated urgent care. That would be referred out to someone else that can maybe cast a broken arm.
Okay, and so then after, I know what I was gonna ask. So anyone in Oakland County can go to this Pontiac location first, if they didn't know where to go, and then they'll refer them to the appropriate health service that they need. Is that what it does?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Like I said, we will have on-site. So if there's some kind of, need, a behavioral health need, right? Maybe somebody ran out of medication and there needs to be a gap in medication so that they can get to their appointment, which is maybe 20 days away.
Okay.
There might be behavioral health practitioners as well as the primary care on-site to treat that whole person as they come in. Our goal is to treat them as they come in, right? If they need to be referred out, that could kind of be a secondary option.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't understand it all, so thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, let's prompt the vote.
So 7 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's hard staying,
All right.
listening to when your turn is online too.
That's it for all of
You know,
our department
Don't you think?
recommendations.
Like you sit there waiting, go away from
Next,
it.
we have our second public comment. Is there anyone who wishes to address the Finance Committee at this time from the public? Seeing no one, and if there's no other business, Commissioner
I just wanted to ask
Charles.
ACOM, would that be a finance committee or EDI? Because there was some talk about, we just haven't really seen much from them. I would like to know what's going on. So
I guess
lifting that into the organizational layout for next.
That's that study, that environmental long-term study, I think you're right. That should come before EDI, I think, unless other people disagree, but we have been waiting for that for months. In fact, when you said AECom, I thought, what is that? Oh, yeah.
So then I'll take care of it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 1:33.
That was a